CBI committee welcomes IMF commendations on the program's impact on participating countries. We'll have details to this story and more in the national report. With the details to the news for Thursday, March 5th, 2020, I am Rikisha St. Louis. The CEO of Grenada's Citizenship by Investment Committee, Mr. Percival Clouden, welcomes recent commendations by the International Monetary Fund on the impact of the regional CBI programs to the socio-economic structure of participating countries. The IMF, in a recent article, recognized the program as a significant contributor of revenue and reducing national debt. The article states, and I quote, "The liquidity injection to Caribbean economies creates significant societal and sovereign value. It helps to diversify the economies of those regions. It creates sustainable employment and eases the fiscal and monetary challenges that are faced by sovereign governments," unquote. Clouden says the spotlight the IMF has placed and continues to place on Grenada's program can rule out negative perceptions that there is no due diligence and transparency.
It will have a positive impact. More importantly, to the more industrial nations like the UK and the US. They look at our programs with a jaundiced eye, although they are doing the same thing. Because we are small island nations, they think that we engage in negative things like encouraging tax evasion and money laundering and things. And that is furthest from the truth. So much so that if one of our applicants do not disclose his source of funds, we send it back for clarification.
The Grenada Citizenship by Investment Program contributes approximately $90 million annually to the country's gross domestic product. It creates avenues for employment and improvement in infrastructure. This year, with 71 applications already processed from January to March, the annual contribution is expected to exceed the previous amounts.
This year, it will exceed 90 million. If things are going as we anticipate, I see more like 110 million coming from CBI. CBI's contribution to the central government. As of this date, we have about 71 applications.
The outlook for 2020 is positive. Clouden projects an increase in applications from 375 to 950.
We have 2 new projects coming online. The Lasajes, the range project in Lasajes, and the national project in Livera, St. Patrick's. Those are significant projects, and it's going to change the economic culture of the North, because people are going to be put to work. They're going to account for the Lasajes project, going to hire about 300 persons, local persons, and that's in the construction phase. And then in the operations phase, another 250 permanent employment. Likewise, the Livera project in St. Patrick's, that's going to account for about 400 permanent employees and about 700 construction workers.
An emotional send-off for Sir Royston O. Hopkin KCMG as hundreds turned out to pay their last respects to a man who made a significant contribution to the hotel industry in Grenada and beyond. Sir Royston, who described himself as one driven by excellence and prided himself in associating with those who were brighter than him, died late last month, weeks after a medical procedure. The service at the Pact Trade Center, which included musical tributes, was attended by the Governor-General, Her Excellency Dame Cecile Lagrenade, Prime Minister Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell and cabinet colleagues, St. Lucian Prime Minister Alan Chastanet, and other regional colleagues. The homily was delivered by Pastor Stanford Simon, who called on all to live and lead a life of example, as Sir Royston did.
We sometimes think, and somehow we think that we want to roll with God, but yet still we want to stay, just sneak in the church and sneak back out. I mean, if you're coming and roll with me, I'm sure you want to sneak in and leave me fast. But if you're rolling with Mr. Royston and Mr. Butch and in a private jet, I'm sure you don't want to leave. I mean, in fact, he may have to tell you it's time to leave. The reality of it is, when you begin to roll with someone of class, you begin to become class yourself. If you do not understand class, you learn class by liming with class. You understand class by rolling with class.
Sir Royston has been widely recognized and has received many local, regional, and international accolades for his contribution to tourism. Less than 1 year ago, he was presented with an Outstanding Achievement Award at the inaugural Ministers' Tourism Awards. Prime Minister Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell remembered his dear friend as one committed to the development of others.
When I was widely criticized over any policy or perceived personal issues, on those occasions he did not call as a businessman but as a friend. He always reminded me that he was there for me. He also cared deeply about his country. And he worked tirelessly every day in service for this beautiful land. It was his duty and a passion.
Sir Royston's childhood friend, Barbadian tourism veteran Peter Odle, delivered the eulogy and shared fond memories of his friend.
He was a passionate man, and his life reflected this. He loved his toys, cars, watches, and pens, from Mont Blanc to Cartier. He collected them with boyish zeal. His collection includes over 24 luxury automobiles, with two notable favorites being his Bentley Bentayga and his Maserati Jeep. He enjoyed travel and reveled in many experiences, from the gondolas of Venice, camel riding in Africa, and driving his Bentley Honors through the British countryside and across Europe. I am sure that I speak for everyone when I say what a privilege and honor it has been to know this charismatic, handsome, and generous human being. May God grant him eternal peace.
This is the National Report. We'll have more news after the break.
Grenada's #1 track and field event is back. The Inter-Secondary School Championships is back at the Karani James Athletic Stadium. You must be there. Experience the intense rivalry between athletes of our secondary schools on the track and in the field. Blame yourself if you miss the first ever Republic Bank sponsored Intercall 2020. Blame yourself if you miss a day of exciting action on the track. Be there every day, day 1, 2, and 3. The 53rd Intercall Championships takes place on March 31st, April 1st, and 2nd, starting at 9 a.m. each day. Come, let's celebrate the inaugural Republic Bank Intercall. Come out families, come out past students, come out school-based supporters for the return of competition on the track and in the field, because Intercall is back.
Welcome back. Germany's new ambassador to Grenada, Her Excellency Ute Koenig, said she is pleased with the bilateral relationship between Germany and Grenada. On Thursday, March 5th, she presented her credentials to the Governor-General of Grenada, Her Excellency Dame Cecile Lagrenade. Since 1974, Grenada has benefited from diplomatic relations with Germany. Her Excellency Koenig said she will seek to strengthen the bilateral efforts between the two countries.
I hope that we will cooperate closely in the future. My minister has created an alliance for multilateralism, because we always think that the problems of this world are too great for a country to face them alone. And in this, our German cooperation is not just done through bilateral mechanisms, but many German cooperation projects are also done through CARICOM, because regional cooperation is also an issue for this region. I learned in my brief stay in the Caribbean that all these islands share a lot of common history, of common bonds, that you have many links, family, friends, business connections, which make this region unique in its access to risks of the world. I'm happy to contribute in the coming years to strengthen the relations between Grenada and Germany. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Governor General Her Excellency Dame Cecile Lagrenade says Grenada is still reaping the benefits of diplomatic relations with Germany.
Our region is being severely affected by the devastating effects of climate change. Through the German Ministry of the Environment, Nature Conservation and Nuclear Safety, assistance has been provided under the International Climate Change Agreement to the Grenada Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and the Environment to support projects aimed at alleviating the effects of climate change. Grenada has also benefited from the GIZ with assistance in export development. Local manufacturing companies were afforded the opportunity to participate in study tours, regional seminars, and trade fairs with the assistance of the GIZ. Your Excellency, your country's continued generous contribution to the European Development Fund, through which Grenada receives developmental aid, has also assisted our country tremendously. We truly appreciate this assistance that has been given over the years.
Finally, in the news, the Ministry of Agriculture encouraged increased production with the hosting of a root crop training at the Maribo Agricultural Station for farmers and field officers. We get more in this Karima Lewis report.
Increase in production and minimizing importation. That was the reason behind a root crop training held at the Maribo Agricultural Station on Wednesday. Close to 100 farmers and agriculture field officers convened at the site with the objective of leaving with information on new planting methods, as the training provided participants with the recommended cultural practices for root crops grown in Grenada. Minister of Agriculture, Honorable Yolande Bean Horsford, implored on the participants to never be afraid of training.
Training is so important. Sometimes we feel that we know everything. As farmers, we've been farming for all these years. And we have all the techniques in the world. We stick things in the ground, and we do our thing and things grow. But these days, we have new techniques. We have smart climate practices that we can use, and you get things double than when you used to plant before with your old techniques. So this morning, this is so very important for you.
Grenada, for a number of years, has been importing root crops. Chief Extension Officer Randolph Shears says importation should be minimized after this training.
It's very embarrassing for us, as an agricultural nation, to be importing, stuff from neighboring islands. In St. Vincent, it's well known that we import, not year-round, but from time to time, root crops from St. Vincent. And these root crops, we can grow them here. As the minister said, we have the right soil, we have the farmers, we have the technique, we have the ideal weather conditions, we have excellent varieties, and we can produce these root crops right here in Grenada.
The one-day session, which was held in collaboration with the Caribbean Agricultural Research and Development Institute, CARDI, took on a group-oriented approach, as participants were placed in 4 groups: yams, cassava and sweet potatoes, tanya, edos and dasheen, and ginger and turmeric. Participants spent 44 minutes at each of the stations and were fully exposed to all categories of the training, which was facilitated by agronomists and extension officers within the ministry. 3 participants, Tevin Alexander, Craig Hazard, and Brian Hazard, are grateful for the methods they were exposed to.
I learned new techniques on how to grow some of the crops that I grow. Yeah, so like yam and ginger and cassava. Some of the techniques I learned, it's not like I used to use that. I used to use old different techniques before, but now that I know new techniques, how to get bigger yields, I would definitely put that into work.
As a farmer, we tend to stick to the traditional method of doing stuff. So I feel that this training today, it will give us some highlights how to do things in a more technical manner, a more modern manner. The technical knowledge you have gathered here today can help us to increase our yield, to get better yields, nicer production.
The training will benefit me in many ways. I learn new techniques, modern techniques. A lot of things I didn't know, especially with the potato and the yam cuttings. I learn the new technique, and I think it will help me. Do my farming better and more effectively.
Sher says the ministry is tasked with ensuring that the practices learnt are in fact implemented by the farmers.
The farmers and officers on the ministry will be here to be part of this training. And the role of the officers after today's training is to be out in the field encouraging the farmers to adopt these practices so that the production can be improved and the productivity can also be improved as it relates to root crop production.
For the Ministry of Agriculture, I am Karima Lewis.
Thank you, Karima. That story just ended the national report for today, Thursday, March 5th. Let's recap the top story. CBI committee welcomes IMF commendations on the program's impact on participating countries. On behalf of the entire news team here at the Government Information Service, I am Rikisha St. Louis saying thank you for listening. Until next time.